Hello Internet, and welcome to a tutorial on how to build a very simple and effective villager breeder in Minecraft 1.16.4. The video will begin by demonstrating how to build the breeder itself. Then, we'll talk about automation and how to get this thing to run around the clock and do all of the work for you. This video will be broken up into several sections. I'll do a step-by-step process of building the villager breeder first, then I'll talk about the automation side of things. And don't forget to watch until the end of the video. I have a few extra tips that will improve this design even further. To get started, I'll show you how to build the villager breeder. If push comes to shove, this could be used manually by just throwing food at them, though the automatic farm does make this a lot more effective. To begin, carve out a 3x3 and place beds as shown. Break the middle block and place a fence inside. It should look something like this. Once that is created, carve out a space around the sides and underneath this design. This not only ensures that the villagers in the center don't actually escape and walk away, but it also acts as a collection space for the baby villagers. While I clear out this space, I'd just like to address, if this format doesn't work for you, where I go back and forth between showing the next step and then updating it on the previous, I've included a complete uninterrupted build of the villager breeder later in the video. Check the timestamps for more information. And don't forget, I included a few extra bonus tips and tricks at the end. As you can see, I dug a little deeper in the subsequent designs. I'd recommend 2 blocks out from the side and 2 blocks underneath the fence post. The next step we need to complete is adding the trapdoors around the top of the bed. This is easy. Place 2 blocks on top of the fence, and then on the top of that block, place the trapdoors. These are what stop the villagers from running away when they are awake. The next process is to stop the villagers spawning somewhere else other than the middle when they wake up after being asleep. These slabs will do perfectly. A previous design of this actually didn't include the slabs, and that used to work. However, as of the latest release, it is essential that you include these slabs. At this stage, also add your villagers. However you do this is up to you, and it can be a little fiddly. If you want to be extra secure, you can also place a block above them. This isn't entirely necessary, but on our survival server we walked for 5 hours to find the villagers, so I wasn't taking any chances. Finally, with that, you basically have a working farm. The only thing left to do now is to figure out what to do with all the villagers you breed. How you choose to move them, or whether you just collect them here, is up to you. You can use a minecart, a boat, or even a water system to push them further away. I won't go into too much detail on these, because it's entirely up to you and where you've built this, as to which method is most effective. However, as long as you don't create a staircase out, you should collect all of the villagers and have plenty of time to figure out what to do with them. For demonstration purposes, as mentioned earlier, this is now a manual villager breeder. You can throw food at them, and that will work fine, although it does take a little bit of time to run over here, drop stuff out of your inventory, and keep repeating the process. Before we work through the automation side of this, I want to address an important point for the entire design. While it may seem tempting to add 2 extra villagers and fill up all of the beds, it's essential that we have empty beds in this design. That way the villager breeders see those and assume they need to repopulate the village. Now, as anticipated, it's time to address the automation side of this. In layman's terms, we need a farming villager right next to these guys. With nothing more than a trapdoor, we can set it up so that the farming villager will throw all of their produce to these villager breeders, while simultaneously preventing them from accessing the beds themselves and getting stuck in the system. Take note of the block elevation. I broke the blocks in line with the fence, and above that is the block in line with the beds. This is the same elevation the farmer will be standing on. However, this trapdoor will prevent them from walking up close enough to get into the beds themselves, but it will still allow them to throw all of their food onto the beds, where it will be collected by the breeders. The separating wall is 5 wide, with the trapdoor in the middle. We then go diagonally 10 blocks, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and on the 10th block, we begin our next 5 wide wall. 1, 2, 3, 4 additional blocks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And again, this 10th block starts our wall 5 wide. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and again 4 extra blocks to complete the wall on this side. Finally, we go diagonally again, and since we've already done the first wall, this should just meet up. If it doesn't quite align, recount. I made a few mistakes myself as well. The next stage is to create the farm. Now technically, you don't need to do this exact design, and to be honest, the water around the outside is probably pretty inefficient. I like the way it looks though. As long as you separate your villager breeder from the farm itself, using a trapdoor on the upper half of the second block that gives space for the villager farmer to throw their produce without being able to access the beds. This is the only part that really matters. How you get those produce is entirely up to you. That said, to make sure this video is all you need to get this up and running, I'll demonstrate a farm I've set up. While I've accidentally trampled a few crops while flying around in creative mode, this basically gets the job done. An easy way to get this up and running is to manually breed another villager and then get them inside the farm. I think this will take you about 8 stacks of potatoes. As you can see from this villager farmer, his hat is too tall to get past the trapdoor, but at the same time, nothing else is blocking his path to throw all of his produce in. As I cinematically demonstrate this point, I'd like to remind you to consider subscribing if you found this useful so far. And don't forget to like as well. Yada yada YouTube algorithm and statistics. You've heard it all before, but either way it's appreciated. To make sure I don't gloss over it, it goes without saying that every villager farm needs a composter. I place this in the middle above a water source to ensure I properly hydrate crops while also not wasting the space. This is basically it. This should be up and running and automated. But let's not stop there, because I actually came up with an extra step that can allow you to increase the efficiency twofold. Now you might be wondering what this is. Well, it's a second layer, of course. The design for the farm itself is exactly the same. I've created a ceiling for the layer below, and then on top of that, placed the farm. For the water, I've simply saturated some stair blocks all the way around the outside. Okay, so I won't walk you through the entire process of building this second layer. You can pause the video to get it done now if you want. You might be wondering what the heck this thing is. It's a simple design I came up with to ensure the farmer on the second layer has a villager in their line of sight to throw their produce to. With this design, the villager farmer has line of sight and throws their produce, but the fences just end up blocking the drops so they fall down onto the beds below. This trapdoor is the one on top of the beds in the breeder. Now I won't show you how to build the second layer of the farm. It's exactly the same thing, and you can use a slightly different design if you want to. However, I will show you how to build this section. I created a roof for the farm below, and then created the farm above on top of that. As mentioned previously, the exact design of the farm doesn't matter. It's all about the separator wall and what I'm about to show you next. So here, I extend the blocks above the villagers below, and finish the wall on the ground level. However, unlike the design on the ground floor, I'm going to keep this 3-block gap. On our server, we have also included a 1-block gap variant. Either one will work, as long as the food drops where the villagers below can access it. Now I'll extend the block above the villagers in all directions apart from the side facing the farm. It's essential we have this gap. This is where the food will fall down. However, I will complete the sides. Now essentially what we need is to keep another villager above the ones below us. The wall I'm currently creating gives them a bit too much movement space, but I'll address that in a second. This is where the magic happens. Take 3 fences and place them across the top of this gap, and then place an additional one in the middle. I complete the loop around the back and place the villager inside. The villager now won't move too far left or right. The bricks around the outside aren't entirely necessary, and as you may have spotted when I showed you our version on the Minecraft server, we opted to only use the fences, which also gave us access to this villager in the middle, who we set up as a trader to give them a second purpose. The final part of the build is to add a trapdoor to the top of the second block on the left and the right. This ensures the villager farmer can only access this from the middle, and will always throw their produce at this center fence. They'll have no way of getting it over the fence, and all of the drops will fall down to the breeders below. Finally, we need to set up this farm so that it actually works. The design I've used saturates stair blocks all the way around the outside. As I've mentioned many times already, you don't need to use this design. Any farm will work. Hydrate and light the crops, place down a composter, and get a villager farmer into this system. Make sure you completely wall this off so the farmer doesn't get bored and leave their job, and they should throw all of their produce down to the breeders, thinking they're throwing it to the one in front. Note that the top left and top right fence isn't filled in, because the farmer still needs to maintain line of sight. So that is about it. You should have everything you need to get up and running. But, as promised, here's the complete, uninterrupted build process, from start to finish, of the villager breeder. Again, carve out 3x3, and fill in the beds, and then add the fence post in the middle. Now clear out the blocks underneath and around this design. To be completely sure that none of the villagers escape from the breeder, and none of the villagers I collect manage to get their way in, I give a 2-block gap both underneath and around the outside. 1 block should do the trick, but I'd recommend playing it safe and starting with 2, getting this thing up and running and making sure it works first. With the space cleared, it's time to head back on top. Place 2 blocks on top of the fence, and around the top of that block, fill in the trapdoors. Then, of course, add the slabs as well. Lastly, and kind of optionally, place the block above. Not that the villagers can escape without it, although don't forget to put your villagers in first. It's a little tricky with a block in the way. And there you have it, you should be done. We now have another manual villager breeder. As a bonus, here are a few extra tips. Number 1, place a hopper underneath the fence post. Because the fence post is set up to allow baby villagers to fall through, there is also a chance that some of the drops will fall through as well. If you want to be completely efficient and not waste any of these, then I recommend collecting them in the bottom. The easy way of designing this is to place the hopper and then just have a chest below. You can manually grab these produce and throw them back into the system. If you're really savvy with redstone, you might be able to come up with some kind of technique to reroute them back on top and dispense them onto the villagers. Honestly though, I just let mine build up in the chest. I don't even throw them back in. In no time at all, I ended up with more villagers than I knew what to do with. Tip number 2, if you have a collection system like this, figure out a way that you can get in and out without allowing the villagers. I found that a boat is all you need to get this done. The design is simple. I have a 2-block high wall. On the collection side, I use a slab to give me a boost up. The 1.5 high wall is still too much for villagers, but I can get in without needing to jump. The top block is a staircase with its back against the villagers. This gives a lip that the boats can't get past. On a similar theme, you may want to get in and out of your villager farms to do some maintenance, check in, or maybe even do some trading with the villagers. Ladders are an effective way to get to lower levels, since the villagers can't climb these to get out. Similarly, using this trapdoor trick that we implemented earlier, to prevent the villager getting into the villager breeder, we can also use this as an entrance/exit. While I can get through without even needing to shift, the villager gets stuck on these and remains on the inside. It also creates an open field, giving plenty of access. On the server, because I was playing around with the design and trying to figure out how it works, we only have a 1-block wide hole and use these trapdoors to ensure the farmer stands in the middle. If you want to imitate it, feel free, but I won't include a tutorial section for this. I'd recommend using the 3-wide design, though I haven't had any noticeable issues with this one either. The final tip, which you might have guessed just from the fact that I built 2 layers, is that this can be underground. There's no necessity for this to be open air. In the build on our server, this is literally inside of a mountain, and works perfectly. As long as you put enough lighting in the farm, all of the crops will grow, and you should have no issues. We may have gone a little bit overboard here with the glowstone and all of the torches. As you can clearly see and hear from down below, it works very, very well. So there you have it. That should just about do you for setting up an automatic villager farm in Minecraft 1.16.4. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you found this useful, and until the next time, I hope to see you in the future.